Welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Dog Business. Today we are going to be speaking to Lauren from Dog Mum Mindset, and we are going to be digging into her journey from puppy classes all the way through to her online business.
So, Lauren, we would love to start with your story of how you got into dog training, the entire journey, what led you to start, the process of where you are now. So if you can go right back to the beginning and, start us there.
Well, I'll go back to the beginning. I mean, do you want me to say what I'm doing now? So you've kind of got the contrast between what I'm doing now to how I started? Or
you could mention a bit about what you're doing now, actually. That would be fab, yeah.
Well, what I'm doing now is I've got an online dog training business. So I do everything online. People can come on, they can buy courses from me. And it's kind of a platform with lots of different things, which I'm sure we'll get into sort of later on. But it's really different to how I started. So when I started right in the beginning, I always remember feeling a bit like an imposter when I came in because my degree that I did was animal behaviour. So you'd think that with that degree, you would be, feeling really good about it. But when I came out of it, it was very, very academic. So I remember being a bit like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, I don't really know. And then what happened was I got a dog. Like everyone's story, I'm sure you're probably the same. Like when you get a dog, you're like, this is what I need to do. So I got Alto as a puppy, didn't really know what I was doing, like kind of put some of my learning into place, but also was like, it's so different, isn't it? When you've got this animal in front of you, rather than doing all these other things that other animals, when you've got your own puppy, you've got to put everything in. So when I got him, I was like, right, this could be the start of something, and I'm just going to give it a go. So I started doing puppy training classes and one-to-ones and just trying to make a living that way. I was working full time at the beginning. So I was like, it might not work out. So I need to be sensible, need to make sure I've got something that I can work on. And I remember Vicky, actually, I do remember meeting you at like probably my first ever conference. I remember feeling like such a kind of small thing. Like I didn't know, I felt very I didn't know anything. I remember being like, how do these people know all these things? Like their dogs are amazing. I remember your dogs. I just loved them. And it felt at that time, like going back like, 11 years, like at that time, I just never knew how I was going to make it. And I suppose what I did was just started and then hoped that it would all work out. And it did. But I think what happened was I started running the puppy classes. They got busier, started doing one-to-ones. They got busier, went from full-time to part-time, went from part-time to a different part-time job in a vet's while I was doing it, which really helped kind of get word of mouth out there. And just, I think part of it was like anything that came up, I just would make sure I volunteered myself. So if someone needed someone to stand for a conference, I would be there. Like I would drive up, spend my whole day for free to do it. If someone needed a volunteer to, I don't know, help with something else, I would be there. And I think that really helped kind of make a lot of connections and meet a lot of people in the industry. And from then on, I just was like full in, keep going. And then it got to the point in 2018, 2019, where I was kind of like, I would say I was flying quite high. Like I had a celebrity client, so I was seeing them like.
I was saying this on our way here. I remember you having a celebrity client. We were talking about,
we were.
Training celebrities' dogs, weren't we? I was like, I'm sure Lauren's trained somebody's dog that's famous.
Yeah, and it was like quite a long time. I used to like stay in their house and like do residential training. I'm not going to say who it was because, although weirdly, they never asked me to sign any like disclaimer. I was just there. So technically I could, I don't know, be saying who it is, but I never do because I don't want to. But I was doing them and I was doing like a bit of TV work and I was training other trainers. I was doing loads of stuff. I was traveling around and it was kind of like I was at this peak of everything I'd wanted from when I started like seeing you at that conference being like, I'll never get there, got to the point. And then I just realized like, I don't know, it wasn't quite fitting. Like I kind of got everything that I wanted, but I was like, I just can't see myself keep going with this. And I don't know why. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because I'm quite a homely person and actually really I like being at home, and that's why online works so well for me. I don't know what it was, but definitely 2019 was a bit of a turning point of like, I've done all of this, but it's actually making me feel quite stressed. Like I feel like a huge burden. I feel really stressed by all the stuff that I'm doing. I don't feel really kind of happy. Like it was a really weird time.
Yeah, just stopping you there actually. So do you feel, because you're a real people person, aren't you? You're really sociable, and that's why we got on so well, because we both sort of clicked in with. Do you feel like it was such hard work to be everywhere and to be everything to everybody? Because I remember you doing so much stuff and just my gosh, Lauren, you're like here, you're there, you're everywhere, and it must get to you.
Yeah, do you know what? I think it's that when I don't know if you just change as you get older. I don't know. Like when I was younger, I would always said like I'm an extrovert, like I'm a massive social people person. And now I'm like, I don't know whether I'm just a really extroverted introvert. But it seems really odd, but I actually really love being at home. But I don't know whether that's a change. And that change just coincided in sort of 2019 with going, oh, actually, because like I love being with people. I'm a real people person, but I'm definitely like, oh, I need to go home. Like I need to sit
some space.
I always say to my husband, like, I need decompression time. Like, if we've been at an event. So I don't know whether it was just I was doing something that maybe, I don't know. I still look back and I'm like, I don't know what it was, but I think what was important was that I was able to go like, this isn't where I'm going to keep going. Because I think if I keep going, I'll get really resentful. And I wasn't at that point. I still loved it. And I still loved all my clients and doing all the things and meeting everyone. But I just could feel like I just don't think I can carry on. But coincidentally, in 2019, right at the end, I was like, right, next year, I'm going to really try and make it online. Like, I'll just give it a go. Again, that kind of imposter syndrome, who am I to make it online? So obviously it was 2019. And I was kind of thinking to myself, right, next year, I'm going to really try and take it online. So again, I didn't really know much about it. I was just like, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. And then obviously the next year we had the pandemic and everything that went on with that. But it meant that a lot of people were forced to go online. And so a lot of people went online and then kind of went back to in person, but I went online and then just stayed online, which I feel really lucky to be able to do, because I know that not a lot of people have done that. But also I feel like a lot of people don't suit the online space because it's so different to being in person. So so it went from there. And I would say even online, I mean, 2019 was 5 years ago. Like I can't compute. Like, yeah, such a long time. So even being online, over that time, I've changed from very much doing one-to-ones directly with people, working very, very, very closely with them, holding their hand, being with them sort of 5 days a week on WhatsApp and message and calls. And now it's very much more of a courses and membership, like here's everything you need and you can go and do it. So it's almost changed even more to giving people the tools that they need to be able to go and do things. So even within that short amount of time, there's been a change. So it's one of those journeys that's very, there's so much more I could go into, but there's lots of, going in one direction and then stopping and thinking, okay, let's assess. Okay, let's try something new, and let's assess and let's try something new. So it's a interesting one for sure.
I love that, because I think everything you've said is typically the trajectory that many people in dog profession tend to go on. Like you say, they've either gone down the academic route, or even if they've not necessarily done the degree, they've gone through umpteen amounts of CPD courses. And as we know now, the majority of those are lifetime access online courses. And then it's oh gosh, now what do I do with that? Am I going out? And then, like you say, like typically going into one-to-ones or some group classes and what have you. And what I really love about your story is that you have shifted with it, and you've even in that last little snippet with you saying, oh, you try this and then you reassess, and then you try this and then you reassess. And for me, I don't think enough of us in this profession actually stop to do the reassessment bit. We almost keep going and keep going. And arguably, like, we've been having these conversations for, God, the last couple of years now, in going, if you was to look at dog training, even from like the the 90s and the early 2000s, the whole mechanic of it all, the whole structure of how people run their businesses is exactly the same. It doesn't seem to have moved on. And then, like I say, kind of going into this online space now, it's what I'd like to kind of dig in a little bit deeper with you on that is you made a conscious decision to want to go into online before the world was kind of, air quote, forced to go into it. So what was your decision behind wanting to go into the online space?
I think it goes back to that. I think for me, so obviously when you're running a puppy class or you're running a one-to-one, you're in this role where you're very much, you're responsible and you're teaching and I suppose you're taking on that responsibility during the time, and you have to be on form all the time. So you have to be, like we said, a very people person. And I think, and you're out a lot. I suppose some people could run it from their home if they had the right setup. I don't know, but you're generally out and about a lot. And I think for me, it was very much a reassessment of actually what I wanted my home life to look like. So I knew that I didn't want to work weekends and evenings. So that was the first thing that I stopped when I was running my business in person. I stopped the evenings and the weekends. But even then, I think for me, it was very much a personal reassessment of what I wanted my life to look like. So it was, this is how I want my life to look, but also a difference in the role. Like I feel like over the last 10 years, I've put so much knowledge into my head, like about dogs and training and behavior. And I'm like, I just want people to know it. Like I just want to be like, here's the knowledge. And I want those people to go off and to use it and make their lives better. And I feel like to get that across in a one-to-one when you're in person, you kind of focus on a few things and you do those things well. But I feel like online, there's so much more scope for me to be like, here's all of these things and you can take your time and you can dip into it. So I suppose it was a two-pronged thing. It was my personal life and my home life that I wanted to change, but also the way that I wanted people to get the information. And the information I had, it's a real drive to get it out. So at the moment, I've got a membership and it's £10. It's really, really cheap. And it's just because I've got all of this stuff that lives on my computer that I've developed over the years. And it's not being used. And I'm like, but it's still good stuff. Obviously, I'm updating it, but I'm just like, I just want somewhere for it to all go. And people can they've just got this place to go to that they can, I've got a question about, I don't know, recall. I'll go and have a look on the membership and see what's on there. And it's a place where people can trust. And I think that's part of it. It's a change in the delivery of knowledge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think another key thing you mentioned in that was you decided to look at how you wanted to design your life. So I think it's a big mindset shift that's needed for a lot of people to go, I can actually work the hours that I want to work. And again, I think a lot of us in this industry it's almost like an excuse, isn't it? Or it's almost like the story we tell ourselves that, oh, well, because people work full time, we have to work evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, we'd all be a little bit screwed if that was the case, because there's only so many hours of an evening and a weekend you can do anyway. So talk us through and what do you think the listeners might be, I don't know, like useful to hear on how you tackled that mindset approach, is to go, okay, I've made the decision I don't want to work evenings and weekends, but now I've actually got to put that into practice and tell my brain that I can do that. Talk us through that and how you tackled that.
Yeah, so during this time, like 2018, 2019, I started doing a lot of like business coaching, self-development, lots of different, just online free things that I would find and different podcasts and books. So I really kind of started to change my mindset in that way anyway. So I think that helped. And I think for me, I'd done it for so long. And then I had my sister, my cousin, who I spent a lot of time with. They were working jobs where it was 9 till 5. And I was missing out on so much. So they would do things on a Saturday and I wouldn't be able to go because I had training classes or I had an event. And I think for me, I just really had to think, what's more important, my family or work? And having that shift of for me, I'm very much like so I have this thing on my phone and it's called Lauren's Rules, and it's from like 2017. I don't know, all of us probably have something on notes on our phone, and it's like whenever I did something and it really stressed me, I would write down like, I'm not doing that again. And so I just kind of built up these rules. And I feel like for me, I'm someone where if I'm like, right, I am not doing a Saturday from this date, I won't do it. Like I'm very much kind of black and white in that way of I'm not going to do it. But I did have it takes me a long time to make the change. So I'll be thinking about it and I'll be going, this gets on my nerves. I'm going to write about, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, right, this is the day and I'm not going to do it from then on. And I think for people who are listening, I would probably just say, think about, you've got to sometimes put yourself first and you've got to look after yourself. And I think the problem with dog training that I see is people don't look after themselves and then they burn out and then they quit the industry and then we lose. I mean, the number of people we've lost over the years who have just gone, and it's not losing because they've moved on to something better. It's like, I can't do this. I've burnt out. I'm done with dogs. It's really sad to see it because so many good people have gone. And I think from that, I would say you need to look after yourself. You need to go like, what do I need to make this a sustainable job long term? Because it's not like working evenings and weekends and missing out on all your family stuff and being exhausted and having that burden of responsibility on you. That's not sustainable. So it's really kind of future proofing it for yourself, so you know that you can carry on doing it. So I suppose for me, I just thought I know that I can't continue doing this. So the first change is let's take away the evenings, take away the weekends. And it's not to say, there might be some areas in the country where you might need to work an evening. I don't know. There might be some situations where evenings aren't, an evening is needed. But I would say to people, be strict. Like if that's a Thursday evening, that's a Thursday evening. Don't let it leak into, I'll do just this Tuesday, just this once. Like you've got to be so strict on your rules. And yeah, that's the way that I did it. I mean, I don't know if it would work for everyone, but it's leading yourself up to it and then taking that action, I think is the way.
So once you made the decision to do that then, did you ever get any pressure to start to do evenings and weekends again? Did you get people that were going, I'd love to work with you, but I can't do a weekday? Did you get that?
I did, but I would just refer them. I'd just say, okay, like you can go to this person. Like I think it's that kind of being quite, like I have quite good boundaries now, and I didn't used to. I used to be really bad with boundaries, and now I've good boundaries. And you can be really kind about it. Like I'd be like, I'm so sorry, I don't work that day. I'd be really nice. This is the day that I can do. We can book in advance. Anything you can. But if you can't do it, here's a referral to somebody that I know can. And I think ultimately, if people want to see you, they will make the effort. And if people just want a dog trainer, then they don't mind going to someone else. If they're like, I just need to sort my dog out, and you go, here's a referral, they'll be really thankful for that referral. So what I did was I had a referral list, and I've still got it now, and I'll just literally send a link. Here's all the people locally that you can try, and I trust these people. But no one, I wouldn't say I actually ever felt really any pressure, because I was just so like, it was almost like I kind of saw it like a 9 to 5 job. Like I was almost like, if I'm not in the office, I'm not in the office. Like sorry, I can't do it. So I think part of that came with like, I had to really work on my boundaries and bring that in. So that's something that I think a lot of dog trainers probably need as well.
Yeah, because I was going to say, what you've just said there sounds a really simple thing to do. Like in principle, so I'll just make my work hours and people work within those hours. But that is so hard for people to do. Yeah. It's turning business away, and it's saying, oh God, like I really want to do this, but I'm having to push somebody away. And so that temptation of going, oh, do you know what? I will do Thursday evening at 7:00 just for you. Yeah. And then, like you say though, as soon as you accept that, you keep leaking into the other days, and you don't really want to do it, and then you feel that like frustration again, don't you? Yeah. So that
sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, so that kind of, that really small comment is actually such a big subject on its own, isn't it?
It's such a powerful decision to be made, and it's something that we've actively done as well, and it's certainly changed my life. It needed to happen, but I think it's almost getting down into that deep root cause of it, isn't it? It's like you're turning away business, you are turning away money, and when you are self-employed, sole trader, solopreneur, whatever you want to call yourself, it's, oh my gosh, I'm actually turning away money. Why would you do that? So, I mean, what, from that money point of view then, how did you find, so kind of like where did you get your business to? Because again, we want to be quite open and talk about the money front, because I don't think it's something anybody talks about enough, and it's almost like this dirty thing, and certainly for women owners of business as well, like we just don't talk about it enough. So where was your business from a finance point of view, when you then decided to go, oh, do you know what, I'm actually going to start choosing to turn work away if it doesn't align with my design your life business now?
Yeah. Well, just going back to your point of, I'll talk about the money, but just going back to when you let people leak in, so you say, okay, I will do that Saturday. One thing that I found, which might help people, is the people that you do the biggest favors for are always the least grateful. Like I would always find, if I ever did it, which it wasn't very often, I would squeeze people in. I'd be like, okay. And you would feel so annoyed because you'd feel like they weren't grateful, and they would be the difficult clients, and you think, I've done such a big thing for you, and you don't seem to appreciate it. So I feel like anyone that's listening, if you do break those boundaries, I think you quite quickly learn, if you find yourself feeling annoyed, go back to that notes on your phone, and you'll start to learn, like, okay, actually, maybe I need to stick with this. So that was one thing that really helped. In terms of finances, so I'd been doing it for quite a long time, and I was at a point where I was earning, relatively well. I was earning enough, to pay the bills, have the mortgage, and buy myself some nice things. So I was kind of at the point where the money was coming in and it was serving what I needed. So, and I think at the time I did have a little bit of savings, not tons, but like enough. And I think for me, financially, I was at the point where I was like, the money to me is not, time is more important to me than money at that point in time. So I would think, even if this person paid me £500, I still wouldn't want to do it and miss out on this family thing. So I think for me, it was a shift of, I had money coming in, I had some savings. So I knew that I could buffer in maybe, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of having less clients. So I think my advice for people would be to have a bit of money to go, okay, I might have a quiet 6 to 8 weeks because I'm turning these people away. But what I can do is I can test it, and I can see whether turning those people away will mean people come in elsewhere. And I found that they did, that when I turned away the evenings, the weekends, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to take the hit. I'm going to have to give up some of my, nice things that I'm paying for. I might have to reduce down some of my meals out. Fine. That doesn't matter to me, because what matters to me is having my time and feeling less stressed. So I gave it a go, and it actually worked out really nicely. So I think, I suppose my advice is make sure that you've got a buffer. So you're not, I think if you're living on the edge and you're literally like, I need these evening and weekend appointments, that becomes very difficult. But I think if that's the case, then you need to look at your pricing structure anyway. And the last thing I would say is, I was so oversubscribed that I knew that I would get people in. So I was turning people away. Like, my puppy classes were always full. I couldn't fit people in for one-to-ones. I just thought, well, I'm turning people away anyway, so I might as well turn them away in the evenings and the weekends, and then focus on the daytime. So I think it's very much that crossover of where your time is being so used up, and where maybe you're making a bit of extra money, but is that money worth it? And to me, it wasn't at the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what was the structure then of your one-to-one? So did you do it as like a package deal? Was it ad hoc pay-as-you-go sessions? Same with the classes? Kind of what was the structure of that in-person business?
So the classes were 6 weeks. So they would sign up to 6 weeks, and then they would do those 6 weeks. And then the one-to-ones, so initially it was just a one-off pay. I think at one point it was like £35. Like, it was cheap.
Oh God, the dreaded
I know. And then
we've all been there.
I know. We've all done it. And then when you put it up, I think I went up to 45, and I'm being like, but the stupid thing is that £10, it just helps your finances so much. Just even if you lose a client, it helps. So I went up to 45. And then I think, again, 2018, 2019, I'd done a lot of mindset work, and I did actually really ramp them up so they were high. And I started to say, you can only book packages of 3, or if you book a one-off, it's a high price point. But even then, I think for me, even then, even when I was charging a lot of money, obviously you reduce your clients because not everyone's going to pay those prices, but you still make the money. But even when I was charging a lot, I still was like, if this is what my life looks like, I still want to change it. So I think that's a really key point when you're doing a service and you think it doesn't really matter what people pay me because I still think I need to change it. That was quite a turning point as well. But yeah, I definitely went through that. The typical, like when I started, one-off, pay really low rate, and then change it towards the end to be a bit more structured, a bit more of a package deal. And then that's when I went online at that point. So I think if I'd carried on, potentially I would have changed it a bit more. When I went online, actually, I used to have a deal. If you worked with me, it was literally you signed up for 3 months and you had to do the 3 months. And that was the package. So it wasn't a one-off. It was, you have to do this amount of time. So I definitely think for people, I mean, I assume that's kind of maybe what you talk to people about is thinking outside the box a little bit rather than doing those one-to-ones, one-off. How can people make it so you make more of a relationship with people as well?
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. I'm curious, what did you go to on your high price then? So you jumped from your 45. What did you go to?
I think it was like 185 maybe. I can't remember if that was for a one-off or like a one-off training, like not a behaviour session, like this is your hour. I think it was that at one point. So I did really ramp it up. Again, I had some business coaching around this and I did some, which is probably what hopefully you'll be doing for people who are listening. So I did have some coaching around like you really, because obviously at the time, you know, I was kind of, like I said, doing relatively well in terms of the things I was doing. So I felt justified in putting them up and people did pay it as well. So people can always put their prices up. I think, yeah, it's a very interesting one when people come into it. But now, interestingly, my prices are lower. So when I started out online, they were really high. I've now taken them lower because I'm delivering a different service. And that service is very much a self-service for people. So I think price and what you deliver and how there's a really interesting thing for dog trainers with that, definitely. But I've been all points with all prices and tried them all out.
I love it.
Can I just touch on your business help that you had? Was it industry specific?
It was it was like dog business coaching at the time. So which it was helpful. I would say for anyone doing it, that can be really useful. I also feel though that the other comparing it with the other things I learned that weren't industry specific also helped. So I think getting specific to the industry, but then having other things outside the industry was really useful. So the combination of the two for me was really good. Whereas I think now, because I mean, again, this is going back like 2018, like that's a long time ago now. I think now probably the stuff that you're doing probably combines all of that other stuff in. So I definitely think it, sometimes you just need to talk to someone and you just need to be able to say like, this is my business, have someone look outside. Really ironically, my husband is very business minded and I'm not that business minded. And he's literally like, well, I did tell you. He's like, I told you.
I told you.
Sometimes you just need someone outside to say it and you listen to them. Like same with dog training, isn't it? Like you need someone to tell you what to do or what you can do. But again, interestingly, even when I was going through that coaching, it was very much like how to do an in-person business. And by the end of it, I was like, I think I want, but then I went online. So it did really help. And it got me to that point where I was charging those high prices. Even with all of that, I was still like, I think I need to change to online. And the online stuff I did completely on my own. Again, with like external kind of freebies and things I was listening to, but that was something I did on my own. So, but yeah, anyone listening, I would definitely say if you need someone to guide you, I think getting a bit of coaching help is really useful.
Yeah, and that external help thing, I think that's a real blocker for people. For dog professionals, isn't it? I feel like that is something that people kind of think they want and then they go, oh no, I can't do that. Or if it's not industry specific, it really stops people from doing it. Because myself and Joe, we do lots of business coaching, mentor, like we receive it, as well as giving it. And we wouldn't be where we are today without that help.
God, no.
Yeah, because you're around so many different people. Okay, they're all in different industries. They could be anything from like, I don't know, working on the stock market to a florist.
Yeah.
But they're all in the same position. Everyone wants to grow their business. Everybody wants to like be more visible. Everybody wants to have the right work-life balance. It's all like that. We're all coming from the same place. So it doesn't matter what you do. It's just that goal is the same, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's that whole, again, it's weird. We as a profession almost seem to want to invest more in CPD than we do in our
anything
business,
else,
in ourselves. Whereas your business is the bread and butter. And I think maybe it's because we don't necessarily see ourselves as business owners. We're in it for the dogs. We're in it for the animals. So it's it's really interesting. You saying that you did start to look at that business coaching side of it. So can you remember, or what was kind of the turning point for you to go out and seek that type of information? Because like we say, it doesn't come natural from what our experience of this industry is anyway. It doesn't appear to be a natural choice for a lot of us. And then, like you say, but it's actually really useful to go and receive it.
Yeah, I think, so I do remember actually, I was at the celebrity's house and I think their dogs had been difficult. They'd been difficult that day. And they were lovely dogs, but you just have one of those days. I think I was having a bad day. And I think I'd signed up to like a massive CPD event where you're away from the home a lot. And I remember, and then something else happened. I think I got an email from someone about a puppy park or something that was a bit of you just have one of those days where a lot of negative things seem to be happening. I remember just sitting there and just being like, I should be really happy. Like, why am I not feeling really happy at the moment? Like, if you look at it objectively, I've got, look at where I am. I'm in the middle of London. Like everything should be great. And why am I feeling so bad? But it wasn't just that day. I think it was a build up of just, again, am I doing the right thing? Do I feel happy about this? And I think I just saw, an advert for some, I think something on Facebook, probably as most people find things. And I just thought, right, I'm going to just send him my email and just get the, freebie that they do. So I think for me, it was kind of a build up of this feeling of like, just feeling a bit dissatisfied and then having a bad day and thinking, right, I need to do something. Like for me, you probably from hearing this, like if something, I don't like feeling stuck. Like if something happens, I'm like, right, what are my options? Like there's never any time that you're stuck. There are always options. And so if I ever feel like, really, unhappy, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I'll look at like what are our options going forward. So one of them was the business coaching. I thought I'll just do that. And it really just went from there. I think I had a call and then signed up for a little bit and then signed up for a bit more. So I think for people listening, I suppose if you're having that kind of undercurrent of, I suppose it's not just being unhappy with your business, it's being unhappy with your kind of structure of your life, like how you've structured everything, like nothing seems to fit. And then you might just find one day you're like, right, enough's enough. I need to do something about this. I remember listening to a podcast and someone says you're either pushed towards something or you're pulled towards something. So a push is like a negative thing. So I think I had a bit of a push, like I was having a really bad day and I was like, I need to do something. Or you get a pull and you're like really attracted and you're like, I really want to do this. So I think either of those things can work to make someone do it. But for me, it was definitely right, I need to do something. What can I do? Which, I mean, I don't know if that's how people find you when they listen to this podcast and things, but I can imagine there'll be a few people who just, I think it's that something needs to change. What can I do about it?
Yeah, and I think that frustration will be different for everybody, won't it? Yeah. Like in your case, it was very much about your home life balance with work, and some people it will be money, and some people it will be just frustration of clients and that kind of thing. In fact, that's something I did want to touch on with you actually. When you were doing puppy classes, so for context, myself and Lauren were part of puppy school for a long time. That's how we know each other. That's how we met. So starting doing the traditional puppy classes, did you then do adolescent kind of offerings as well? Did you start? Yeah,
I did follow on, like 6 week follow on, yeah, I would do follow-on ones, and then I think I would do one. I tried so many different things, like workshops,
bit of everything.
Yeah, bit of everything.
Sounds like your website.
Yeah, it does. So going back to that, the delivery, you try so hard, don't you? So you've got a mix of people in that room all together, all with different aims, all with different goals, all with different levels of like, they all care about their dogs, but there's different levels, isn't there, of the people who are really determined to make it happen to the people who are ticking a box to say they've been and they don't really want to be there. They'd just rather be at home watching Coronation Street, whatever. Yeah. So you've got a real mix of people and you're so passionate about the wanting to help everybody. And that in itself, when I did it, found it so stressful. Like I was putting my all into it and people could see the passion and the, enthusiasm. They'd always say, my gosh, Vicky, your energy is just like there and everything. But then I'd come away and I'd feel just like, I didn't feel like I did anybody any good because I was trying so hard to accommodate everybody, every single person individually, that I feel as a collective, it didn't really have what I was hoping it would have as a result. Did you feel like that?
Yeah, I do think puppy classes, they are hard. And I think that you, like, especially when you've got high standards and you want every puppy to have had the best time. And if you just have that wrong mix of people in the classes, it's really hard. You come back and you're like, what? How am I going to cope with this? Like, I'm going to have to see these, this mix. It's not ever the individual people, it's just the mix. And especially if you have the mix of puppies. I always think for people now, like looking back, I think you always did better than you thought. So just because, like, if you've got really high standards, if one person by the end of that class taught their puppy to sit with a treat and they didn't learn to yank them around, for that person, that's an achievement for them. So I think now I've got a lot of hindsight and I can kind of go, well, you did a really good thing by just having the classes and just letting people be who they are. And I think part of it is you do have to let people be who they are. Not everyone's going to have the practical skills to be able, like some of the stuff you do in puppy class, like the lead walking, is quite hard for some people. And if you've got someone who's older and they physically can't do it, and I'd literally be like, you know what, my aim for you is as long as you're not yanking that puppy and that puppy looks really happy walking next to you, even if they pull a bit, I don't care because you're having a nice time and the puppy's learned something positively. So I think it's hard to say because at the time I think I felt the same as you. I'd come away and think, oh God, I haven't done a good job. But I think anyone listening, I think you're doing a better job than you think you are. And each person's going to have a point that they can reach, and not everyone's going to reach as good as you are. So everyone's going to be worse than you are because you're the professional. And also I think if you've got a class and they're in demand and you're getting word of mouth, then you are doing a good job. So I think if people are coming to you, if you're oversubscribed, if you've got people contacting you out of the blue, then you are doing that good job, even if you don't think you are. So that's probably the way that I would get people to reframe it, or how I reframed it when I look at it. But yeah, that feeling is really hard when you used to get home and think, oh, that was hard work.
And looking at it in terms of the dog and what is best for the dog, would you say that your opinion has changed?
Oh, I was going to ask this. I was like, what's your opinion of puppy classes?
Yeah, so the actual setup in terms of the dog and the owner experience, has that changed? Because at the time, like you just said, you think you're doing the best. You were doing the best that you possibly could in the situation you've got. You've got that scenario, and you're managing it as best you can, and you're trying to like tailor yourself to everybody. But have you changed your view on puppy classes and whether they are the right thing to be offering as a general kind of service, or do you think that it should be different?
I think that. So it's really interesting because I didn't take Alto to a puppy class, which is why I felt so imposter syndrome-y when I went.
I remember you saying I remember when we first met and we shared that house together, and you're like, I didn't bring him because I'd be so embarrassed that he wouldn't behave. I remember you saying that.
Now, to be fair, he's just, he's so lovely, but he's got a big bark and he's very attention seeking. So anyway.
He's a golden retriever, Lauren.
Yeah. So I didn't take him. My sister's just got a puppy. She hasn't taken hers. My cousin did. Like all of our family dogs, we haven't, but we've had all of the resources and myself to do the training that we haven't needed to. So I think if you've got those resources, if you're meeting, if you're out and about, you're meeting lots of dogs, you've got a relatively, a puppy from a stable background and they're doing really well, potentially you don't need a puppy class. But what I would say is for the people who maybe live quite rurally, or they just don't meet people. I think a really well-run puppy class can be good. So the ones that probably we used to run, I think if you could reduce it down, I think I would do it with 4 personally. If I ever did one again, I would only do it with 4 puppies. And I think I would be maybe, it's hard, isn't it? Because how can you be selective if you've got, you've got the puppies that are already reactive, already resource guarding. It's very hard to have those in the class, and it's not their fault. It's not the owner's fault. But I think if you can have a nice group of puppies, it can be really beneficial. So when we used to do puppy parties at the vets, and you had the really, really baby young puppies come, that was always quite lovely. Although you did still get issues there, but usually that was quite lovely because they hadn't quite learned how to be, have these issues. So I suppose what I'm saying is, if someone's got everything they need, they don't need a puppy class. I don't necessarily think it's a necessity. But I think if someone really, like for some people, they just don't know, that they would come to classes and they would have no clue. Like they would turn up and not have a lead, and they wouldn't know what food to feed them. Like they really didn't know. And I think they helped those people. So I definitely think there is a space for them. But I think that space has got to be really well run. And I think that's probably the problem, is that a lot of people think puppy classes are the easy option. So they're like, oh, we'll start with puppy classes. I'm like, no, like you need to really know what you're doing. Like I'd say more so than with adult dogs, because you're forming these puppies. So yeah, I suppose my opinion probably is a well-placed, a well-run puppy class for some people is the best thing. But not everyone needs to go to them, I think.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? Because again, if you're looking at it from that business structure, it is very, I think we could be doing a lot more with those puppy classes. Like I say, I think there is definitely a space for a group environment, but certainly I think in our opinion that the typical 6-week village hall type approach isn't actually benefiting anyone really. You might get the odd snippet of stuff,
but it's that question of, is it conducive to learning, isn't it? When you've got a load of novice, maybe, owners and a load of novice dogs in a room together, and they all need different things. Is that the right thing to do, is to put them into a room together?
From like step one. And it's almost like you say, with mixing it in with that online space now and with your membership, it's like, oh, okay, let's drip feed you some information that you're paying for, so you're naturally more likely to consume it because you're paying for it. It's not a free space. And then almost work in some of that in-person stuff. I think that's a really nice mix. Yeah. So tell us more then about your business now, because I think it's a really nice journey you've gone on. Like I say, we've gone kind of like the standard trajectory, I'd say, for most people, and then you've kind of shifted into this online space. And for me, I think the online space is absolutely where a lot of us should be focusing our attention on in this day and age. But I still think there is a massive, whether it's a stigma or it's hardwired into our mindset that, my God, you can't possibly do dog training online. Everybody wants it in person. Nobody wants Zoom. Nobody wanted it in Zoom during the pandemic. They don't want it now, so that's why they've all reverted back. But I know that there's so many successful businesses out there that are turning over a good 50K plus, if not even 6 figures, doing online dog training. So yeah, tell us a bit more about your online business now and how that's working for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I find that the online businesses that are successful, some of them, not all of them, but some of them are just really bad dog trainers, like they're punitive, and it's really interesting because I think there's such a space for reward-based dog trainers to do these things. But I think we're just not as good at selling ourselves. And I think to have an online business, you have to be good at selling. And I don't think that I'm naturally great at selling things. And I've had to really learn to do that. Like, it's not a natural thing for me. I just want to sit there and be like, here it is, come and get it. It's there. And you can't, you have to go through all the different routes to get it. So I would say the online business, I personally would say when you initially start it, you have to have some sort of savings or buffer, because I do find if people don't want it, your dips are much bigger, I found at the beginning, than they are with in-person dog training. Because in-person dog training, you can always find someone, you can always market yourself. You can go to the vets. There are so many ways to market yourself for free. And there's always the demand. Whereas when you go online, you do get the people that go, no, I need it in person. And a lot of, it's not so much the dog trainers, I think it's the dog owners that can sometimes feel like, well, you're not teaching my dog, so I don't want you to come. There's a mindset shift that needs to happen there. So I think when you start out, it's quite like you maybe have a big influx of people and then it might go a bit quiet and then you get an influx. And it's really interesting because you think it'd be the other way around because there's so many ways to market it. There's online, social media and there's podcasts and all these things. But I would say that it's you have to hold your nerve, I think, more with online than you do with in person. Unless, I suppose, if you're coming at it and you've already got a big social media following or you've already got a big way of marketing, which I didn't really have. Like my social media was rubbish when I started. Like it was that typical, like, here's a picture of my, puppies in their class, which some don't do well with some people, but they didn't do that well for me. So I've really had to learn all these different skills. And that's probably part of why I changed, because I'd like to learn things and it's been like a whole learning journey. But I would say that it's just a totally different way of doing things to in person. I personally prefer it because I think you can, I like to be creative. So you have to be very creative when you're doing things. Also, I would say that it's fluctuating because of what's happening, around the world. So when I first started, I was charging really high prices, 3-month programs and doing those. Part of the reason I stopped that is, again, because I wanted to kind of step back a little bit from being so responsible for people, but also because there was less demand for it. So you have to be a lot more adaptable with your online business. What worked in 2020 isn't necessarily going to work now. So you have to be like, again, okay, I've got to change. I've got to put something out new. But also with your products, hold out your nerve. So it's a really interesting. I mean, I do love it. I do really enjoy it because you are changing all the time. I think for me right now, I feel really happy. I've got the branding, I've got the website, I've got the, I'm happy with everything that I've got. I've got a nice bank of offers that people can sign up to. I've developed quite a few things. So now it's really about honing, getting them out there, getting people in and kind of, building that cycle of people coming in and using them. So, and like I said, I've gone from, I've got different courses. So I've got puppy biting course. I've got like a puppy training course. Separation was a massive thing for me. And I've actually changed. So that's a membership now. It didn't start as a membership. And like I said, I've got my Dog Mum Mindset membership. And the reason I did those is just because I find people can use them for as long or as little as they want. And people really appreciate being able to do that. So some people come into separation membership and they maybe just want to learn, how to settle my dog behind a baby gate, and they use it for maybe a few months. Or some people come in and they're like, okay, I really need to work on my dog's separation, and they'll use it for like 6 months, 12 months. So I think I would say to people, having different offers can be really useful, but it takes time and it takes a lot of evolving as you go through it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And your memberships, are they, how do they work in terms of structure? So people pay a monthly fee, presumably, and they can stay with you as long as they like or as little. Is there a minimum term that they need to stay for? No. So they can literally just pay you for a month and leave if they want to, or they can keep sticking with you. And do you have, what's your incentive to keep people with you? Do you keep adding new things? There's new things being added. I think the separation membership, there's bits being added here and there. It's always being honed and developed. But I think for that's very much down to it's very structured. So you start here and you go through everything to get to here, and to go from A to B actually would take you at least 3 to 6 months. So if people want to do it properly, they stay, because it's really hard to move on without doing the first stage. So that works really nicely for separation anxiety school. For the membership that I've got, people, they can access most of the things. There's a few things where they have to have a code, and they get a different code every month. And so that only allows you to open up one of these kind of signature courses a month. So they're not people. What I don't want is people to come in, download everything and go. But I've set it up so if there's videos, if you stop the membership, you can't access it afterwards anyway. So it works really nicely, because I just think if people want it, they pay for it. And if they don't, then they don't have to. So, and there's, like I said, the £10 one, I mean, probably I am going to put that price up, because it's going to hopefully become this massive, all-rounded piece, massive thing that people can sign up for.
Yeah, it's going to have everything in there. But at the moment, I'm just, I literally, it's just, here's my knowledge. I just want you to have it. I don't want to stress about it. I don't want to worry. I mean, I don't do Facebook groups and communities. And I know a lot of people talk about having a community, but I find for me that I try and keep off social media in a weird way, because I find that there's just a lot of noise. And I feel like sometimes I don't want to add to that. And also my audience, when I've asked them, they've said they're not too bothered. So I'm like, well, I'm very much about how can you do how can you give as good a service without adding on too many extra things that people maybe don't use. So it's a very different one to maybe where I first started, but it seems to be working really nicely. But again, people might be watching this in like 6 months' time. Who knows? Like it could have
changed completely.
It could be much higher priced. It could be that I've changed it in some way. It could be that I have a community. Like I never say never to anything. And I think that helps a lot with developing things and moving on.
Yeah. And that change thing in you, that desire to keep improving, is that something that you feel like is always been with you? Is that something that's developed over the years, or is it just innate in you?
I have this weird thing where like there's one part of me that's very, very fixed. So I started dog training like I said, 2013. I've always stayed with dogs. But within that, I've changed loads. So I have kind of these two parts, which is like I'm really fixed and set in my ways in some ways, and then I change. But I think the change, it comes back to that, like, my thing is there's always options. So if something isn't working for you or for your clients or, in any way for your life, then you just have to go, okay, what are the options? And just almost sit back and just think, okay, what can I do about this? And so, like I said, sometimes you do have to hold your nerve. Like when I did the online training, there has been a time where it's gone quiet and I've been like, was this the right thing? Should I have done it? And you just think, no, this is, I suppose, a lot of gut instinct with me as well. A lot of what feels right. I'm very, what feels right. And then what can I do about it? Kind of the mix
from within, and it kind of, that's where you're led by almost.
Yeah. And I'm really lucky in terms of, because I've done it for so long. I'm in a really nice point in my life. Obviously my husband works, we've got a stable kind of income together. I don't have too many other pressures on me. So I am really, I don't want anyone to think, oh, it's all right for her. Like I do appreciate, I'm very lucky, I'm very privileged. Like I'm able to make those changes. And there might be people listening who are like, well, it's easy for you, but I've got this to pay, or I've got this. But I still think, even when I have been in that situation before, there are small changes you can make. They don't have to be massive, drastic ones, but you just look at like, okay, what are my options in front of me, and what's the best, what feels like the best one to go for. I just want to put that in there. I don't want anyone to think like, I'm just saying, oh, it's easy for everyone. You just have to change what you're doing, because it's not.
That's a really interesting point, and I'm going to throw this over to Jo now, because that's see how I did that? So I think that's another blocker that people have, is going, well, it's all right for you. I get it. Well, you haven't got any children, and you haven't got, these dependents, and you don't have this to do and that to do and school run and all the other manic things that come with it. So that's often an excuse to not change things or to do anything different and outside the box. But my colleague Jo will explain. She's got 2 young boys and has a lot going on, and manages it, I think, amazingly. So,
it is. And I think it is, I hear it a lot that people kind of position me as a superwoman, is a phrase that gets thrown around. And I'm like, I personally don't see myself like that. I'm like, well, I just need to get shit done, basically. I do have 2 young boys. I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I've got the dogs, got chickens. We've got this coaching, mentoring business. We've got the podcast. We've got our own respective businesses. And I'm also doing my full-time uni degree in animal behaviour.
Okay, that's a lot. Yeah.
And still, for me, I think because that desire and that drive to go, I want to create that life that A, my kind of kids can be proud of, but B, that allows me to do all of this nice stuff that I want to be doing. And for me, I just felt that actually I'm not giving the best to the clients if I don't start to really treat the business as a business. And ultimately, like, I keep coming back to your story. I think it's just such a lovely depiction of like what typically happens in this industry, and it's just really refreshing to hear that if you've got that desire and that drive, that you can turn things around, you can create the life that you want. And whether, that's people wanting to aim for like a 30 to 50k salary or go bigger and do what we're doing with 6-figure businesses, then you've got that flex to design your life how you want it. But you have to, I think for me, it's just really important to emphasize the importance of getting that external support in some way, shape or form. It doesn't matter who you go to, but you need somebody to help guide you through that journey, because it is impossible to do everything by yourself. I couldn't do all of these things if I didn't have my mentors and all of the stuff that I've personally invested in. So no, I think it's a really nice story that you've been able to share. And I'm interested to hear about your podcast as well, because you've got a podcast that you do as well, don't you?
Yeah, I've got the Dog Mum Mindset podcast. So I started that because obviously online business, I was like, I need a way to just talk to people, really. It wasn't really a conscious decision to sell. It was more to just have another, I suppose same as you, another way to reach people and kind of get them to know you. So I started that, I think it was 2021. And I've had really amazing guests on there. And we've done I never wanted it to be a dog training podcast. I wanted it to be like all different. It's everything. It's not just one thing. So we've had someone on who talks about like human design and astrology and dog owners, which was, it's so different to what we would normally listen to. But yeah, it was so, and she was amazing. She was so, so good. And I've got a few bits that will be coming up that I want to talk about, a few other things. So it's kind of, for me, it's to talk about things that I would want to talk about. So the dog training stuff is probably more the membership and the courses. And then the podcast is my way of sharing things that you would maybe talk to with friends, or you'd want to talk about. And I talk about kind of boundaries and mindset and things like that as well. So yeah, and I've really loved it. We've had lots of different guests on. And it's so interesting to be able to, you probably find doing this, being able to sit down and actually talk to someone in a structured way, you get to know a lot about people, and it's so interesting. And for me, I suppose, like I said, I am a people person, and I like to learn about people and talk about different things. So it's allowed me to do that. But I would say for anyone thinking of it, I think we were saying before, a podcast, it's really strange because you don't get the number of downloads you get doesn't seem like that much. But then I've got to number 2 in the charts, for the category, which I think is is it family and children and dogs? There's a weird category that dog training goes into, but I've got to number 2 of that category, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. But when you look at the downloads, you're like, that doesn't seem like very much, because we're used to Instagram and Facebook numbers of thousands and thousands. Podcasts, you don't need that many downloads to be able to do quite well. So I would say it's a really good thing to get into. And also the compliments I get, people always even at the beginning, you were like, I love your podcast. I was like, thank you so much. It's just a really nice thing for people to listen to. And I find that when people listen to it, I listen to them when I'm cleaning or when I'm driving or when I'm doing something. And it's like a companion, isn't it? Whereas when you're watching, YouTube videos are amazing, and I watch those as well, but it's a different experience, because when you're listening to them, you're doing something and it kind of goes in. And I would say a lot of the learning that I did was just listening to lots of different podcasts, random episodes. I think, I listen to that and try and learn about this mindset or this self-development or this. And yeah, so I've loved doing it, actually. I had a little break, I think from maybe October last year. I've had a break, and then we're going to start again soon. So yeah, looking forward to going back to it.
Yeah, we'll make sure we drop the link in the show notes. So if anyone wants to go and have a listen, then you can go and get yourself over there. So then, Lauren, it's been lovely talking to you. And one thing that we always like to ask everybody is, who do you think we should get on the podcast next in order to really help our listeners on their dog professional journey?
Have a little think. It's always a bit of a trick. It's proven a bit of a tricky question.
I love everybody's faces when they do it. They're like, oh.
They're delving into their brains, trying to think of the right person.
This is really hard, because I feel like, do you know what? I feel like maybe getting on, I don't know off the top of my head, but maybe someone who's not in the dog business, someone who's maybe one of your mentors, because or someone that you've worked with that's not to do with dogs, because I feel like that really helped me. And I feel like that might give a different perspective on things. Because like you said, whatever business you're in, you need to try and grow it. But dog businesses don't seem to have that same, it's a very unique situation. So I feel like if you could get in somebody who could talk about their business, but it's not a dog business, would be really useful. And like, maybe a mentor, someone that you've had that's maybe mentored you, or someone, I don't know if you've got any names, but that would probably be who I would quite want to listen to, because I'd be like, and like ask them questions like, when dog trainers charge £35 for an hour session, like I used to, what do you think, how would that fit into your industry? I think that might be really useful. Sorry, I haven't got a name. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but I think as a general kind of topic, that would be amazing.
No, that's really helpful. And I think, do you think that would help normalise that external help as well, that we're saying is a bit of a blocker? I think it probably
would. It's a good job. We've got loads of guests lined up exactly like that.
We have. Yes, we have. We have been researching and canvassing people to come on, very similar to that.
So if you haven't already listened to it, then go back a few episodes, and there's one with a fabulous lady, Charlie Day, who goes all into sales and how you can really elevate your business on that. So well, like I say, we'll get your the link to your podcast in the show notes as well. And if there's any other information that you want to share with our listeners, then whiz it over to us and we'll get those popped into the show notes as well. But thank you ever so much for your time with us today. I really enjoyed the chat.
Oh, thanks so much, Lauren. It's felt like the old days today.
I know. Thank you so much. It's been so nice coming on, honestly. And I really appreciate it. And I hope people have enjoyed listening as well.